show for all your latest UFC news and rumors. It's Brian Coyle. It's Sean Stanley. It's the TFM Live Podcast. And it's now. Good evening. It is Thursday night here. TFM Live Podcast on the air with you. Sean Stanley, Brian Coyle. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing better than the San Antonio Spurs are doing right now.
Oh,
holy shnikes.
Is it bad? I haven't even been watching that yet.
I think it's 91-65 at the end of the third. So we're looking at a Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry battle in the Western Conference Finals. That makes me excited because
wow, that's
going to be fun.
Yeah, but I really thought that San Antonio was going to fight for that.
You and every other single person that's analyzed the NBA the entire season. But what's even more exciting is the UFC card this weekend because, dude, we have probably, I mean, if 200 didn't exist, this would be the biggest card of the year, bar none.
Yeah.
UFC 198 down in Curitiba, Brazil, in a soccer stadium. Dude, I legitimately can't wait. I've been psyched about it all day long. I've been writing fight breakdowns, which you can see on the fullmountmma.com. If you've never heard of us before, you're just hearing in the show, checking in for the first time, we are TFM, the fullmountmma.com. We have a podcast that this will turn into, if you're listening live, that you can subscribe to on iTunes. You have the website where me and Sean, we write various articles and UFC news, rumors, fight breakdowns, etc., all that kind of good stuff. You can follow us on Twitter at The Full Mount, at BCoyle11 for me, at SS Sports Talk for Sean. And Sean, let's jump into the biggest news from the card. This was going to be this can still be an amazing card, but I feel like a part of it was too good to be true because we lost a fight off of this card just yesterday. Anderson Silva, Uriah Hall is off of the card. Uriah Hall has been pulled from the card because of Anderson Silva's health. He had gallbladder surgery yesterday, which is nothing to mess with, and it sucks because Hall and Silva, while not the most, like, bar none, like, big ramifications from the fight, was just going to be awesome, period. So what was your reaction to this news?
Well, for me, it was a hit to my, my 3 and out on one of my 3 and outs there because I thought, if Uriah Hall could get a victory, not only you're beating a legend in Anderson Silva, but you're also beating somebody and moving up probably into the top 5, depending on how everything works out here. But now you're not even on the card. And doesn't it seem, though, that you are waiting for one of these fights to fall off this card? Because it is a pay-per-view, so that means that something has to go wrong.
Yeah, because it was just too good to be true. We have this massive fight card, and Silva not being on it, it's a body blow. It doesn't kill the card by any stretch of the imagination. But
I guess this is like the Brasilia-mania?
This is Brasilia-mania, if you want to call it that. Just not having Silva, it's that the environment of this card, and we'll talk about this more as we preview the fights. The environment of this card is going to be epic. 45,000 people in a soccer stadium in the middle of Curitiba. It's going to be something to behold, and every fighter that's not from Brazil is going to have a major disadvantage, and every fighter from Brazil who's fighting a foreigner is going to have a gigantic advantage. It's just, this environment is something like we're never going to, we haven't seen before. But I have good news on this. Supposedly, according to MMAfighting.com, Silva's doctor who told Guilherme Cruz that the surgery was successful and Silva can resume training in 4 to 6 weeks. Hall was pulled from the card, which throws me to believe that they're going to still have this fight. When? We don't know. 200 is so loaded right now. They added TJ Dillashaw and Rafael Sunsao this week, and I don't know if you want to throw Silva Hall on there. If you want to, by all means, I'm going to sit in front of a TV and watch people beat each other up for like 6 hours, and it's going to be amazing.
Well, I think if something drops off that card, you could probably see that fight added.
That's a great point. Replacing it on UFC 198 is Warley Alves, excuse me, and Brian Bam Bam beat up Sage Northcutt Barberena. So that was kind of a kick to the stomach. Missing Silva is going to be bad, but there's a whole cavalcade of stars that are going to be on this card. We'll talk about it. We'll preview it all coming up later on in the show. We'll talk about the 3 and outs that we had, the little couple topics that we want to get to that we have on site for you right now that you can find on the fullmountmma.com. We'll talk about a new segment we debuted, a new feature on the website that we debuted this week that you can look at on the site. But there was a major story, Sean, that broke, and we don't know all the specifics, and it's kind of been floating around in the MMA ether, if you will, for a while now. I believe Bleacher Report's Jonathan Snowden was the first to kind of have concrete tweets about this, and it was about the UFC being sold. ESPN had a massive article drop 2 days ago, I believe, from everyone's favorite business reporter, Darren Ravel. And he wrote a whole article about the UFC has 4 bidders, and they're in advanced talks to sell the business for a value of expected value between $3.5 and $4 billion. Now, when you hear that, it's a lot to take in. Immediately after this news broke, the following day, Dana White was all over the media. I believe you have some sound queued up from his appearance on the Dan Patrick Show. Why don't we roll that and see what Dana White has to say about the UFC being sold?
The UFC is not for sale, but we're working on a deal. There are confidentiality agreements in place, but no, the UFC is not for sale. So unless some guy really shows up and has $4 billion, then yeah, we can talk.
So yeah, Dana White completely saying, no, we're not for sale. But if you have the money, sure, why not? White continued on his appearance at the Dan Patrick Show and had a couple other things to say.
We're not up for sale. You know, we're always working on deals and our expansion globally. And, you know, I've been saying since this thing came out, no, we're not for sale. But let me tell you what, somebody shows up with $4 billion, we can talk. We can definitely talk.
Yeah, this story is weird because White came after Darren Ravel saying he had his facts completely wrong, and Ravel has all of these sources and all the pretty good information. Obviously, he wasn't the first to have it, but he's completely kind of broken the doors off of it, if you will. Ariel Helwani and Snowden were tweeting about this a couple nights ago. The UFC's Vice President of Public Relations and Athlete Marketing, Dave Scholler, responded to a bunch of media requests saying, as a private company, we don't discuss speculation or rumors related to our business. Sean, I believe we have one more clip from Dana White's appearance at the Dan Patrick Show. Why don't you roll it?
The day we decide to sell, I probably don't want to do this anymore. I love this. I love this business. I love the sport. You know, I jump out of bed every day excited to go to work. Listen, me and the Fertitta brothers have been together for a long time. And, you know, something we did would be a mutual decision, and we'd probably all be looking to get out of it.
Now, again, that was Dana White on the Dan Patrick Show Wednesday morning. Sean, what was your initial reaction to this? And I want to kind of dive deep into Dana White's comments right there at the end. Besides the fact they said we're not for sale, but if they would sell the business completely, White would be out of it. And this was a major figure that's been around, that's brought the UFC from this $2 million company to this potentially, I mean, along with the Fertittas, obviously, to this $4 billion business. What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, originally, I mean, you know, I was trying to find out, you know, the whole thing is just, it seemed like it was kind of out of the blue. I mean, not saying that if you're not going to get an offer and things like that, but the way the story, and again, you know, they always say, and you said it many times on here, that the business, you know, it's not about a fighter, it's about the business. And when I heard $4 to $5 billion for this, and it just made you kind of see that, I guess, how big they have gotten. If this number's accurate, again, we got a whole bunch of different stories going on here, but $4 to $5 billion for this that I mean, what, probably 5 years ago or even 3 years ago, you're not even probably looking at half of that. I mean, this thing has blown up recently. Not recently, but over the last 3 years probably to what it is today. Once you had your Rousey, McGregor, it may have been back a little bit farther than that. I mean, you had guys going with, with your Franklins and the things like that. But till recently, now it's starting to get more mainstream publicity, I think. So you're going to see people, I think companies that are trying to get into this business that normally didn't, I mean, I think I look, he said it. If somebody comes up with $4 billion and gives it to us, then we'll talk.
Yeah. So the four organizations that are reportedly in for this are WME/IMG, which is a major agency, China Media Capital, the Blackstone Group, and Dahlia Wanda Group. Now, two of those companies are from China. This would be a major region that the UFC could expanding into Asia. There's only two minority investors, with the exception of the Fertittas owning the UFC, and obviously Zuffa owns the UFC. That would be Dana White himself, and then the Abu Dhabi government, which owns 10% of the business under Flash Entertainment. I could see there's a lot of moving pieces here, and I don't want to get too bogged down too much, because it's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo, and it's not happening. So right this second, so we won't talk about it until we get some concrete evidence. But I would not be surprised, like, if they want to sell it now, this could be the peak of the business. I mean, there's obviously more and more room to grow, but like as you mentioned, Rousey and McGregor have kicked this thing up a notch completely. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be shocked if they sold off a portion of it to still maintain majority control. But if they want to make some more money off of this, and then these Chinese-based companies could buy a portion of it and then eventually sell the whole thing to them if they wanted to in the future. Yeah,
but wouldn't it make more sense, and again, I haven't read all the legal mumbo jumbo and things like that, is to give them, I guess, promotional rights instead of selling them, I guess, shares of the UFC or whatever, but giving them promotional rights over in wherever they're located?
I think that's more of it's a better investment for these companies to buy in instead of licenses
but I'm
out.
saying
So
for the UFC, though, for the UFC, it would probably be better for them to sell off like promotional rights.
Yes, obviously. So it's one of those things where who gets what and what are you allowing influence from in other places. And Dana White, as much as he's been derided in the media for his, I guess, audacious personality, sometimes when he comes at guys for just doing their job, and like he'll be blusterous, he'll be Vince McMahon-esque, like, if you will. But Dana White has done a fantastic job as the UFC's hype man since the beginning of the UFC's best days. So you have to give him a ton of credit here. And if $4 billion comes a calling, and I know White said it on Dan Patrick's show that they wouldn't be interested, the Fertittas wouldn't be interested in buying an NFL team, and right now the rules in the NFL prohibit anybody who owns gambling-based operations like the Fertittas do from buying a team. But the Raiders supposedly are seriously looking into going to Las Vegas. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And we'll see how it develops going forward. But this is something to keep an eye on, especially because we could be looking, if this comes to fruition, if a full sale comes to fruition, if Dana White and the Fertittas are gone from the UFC, that's a big change about how the business could operate, how we see the UFC as is now. Because, I mean, the Reebok deal was a shock to the system for everybody. The TV deal with Fox runs out soon, and they'll obviously be looking for a better, more lucrative deal because, I mean, the way the sport has grown over the past couple years is remarkable. And then you also have to deal with the lingering issues involving independent contractors and employees, and an Ali Act possibly coming to MMA, and a fighters association, which you don't have in MMA like you do in other sports. There's a lot of different things here that could create something that I don't exactly know whether or not will be good for the UFC or not. White goes out and says the UFC is not for sale. Obviously, that's not the case because there's so much heat coming from all of these reporters saying that this could happen. It could be portion of a sale. It could be these Chinese markets coming in. Obviously, they want to expand into Asia because that's such an untapped market. You have 1 billion people that don't get access to this sport, don't exactly see this on a regular basis. And we've seen with other American companies, like such as entertainment companies from TV shows and movie companies, all finally kind of getting in to China, and these companies are altering their business plans because of that gigantic market. Like this, that's what I think it comes down to, Sean. China is such an untapped market. Asia itself, you have one championship that deals with Asian MMA. Yeah, Ben Askren, obviously, is probably the most well-known fighter from that promotion. But that's, I think, the key thing here to look at is there's 2 Chinese companies interested in buying into the UFC and bringing it over there, and that's where the money can absolutely be made.
Oh, no, definitely, especially when you start branching out overseas. I mean, look at the cards they've had recently.
Yeah.
I mean, where were they at last week? Was
Rotterdam.
Yeah, Rotterdam. Before that, wasn't there? Where were they at?
Croatia.
There it is, the Croatian one. That was the one I was trying to think about.
Yeah, they're moving all over the place. I mean, you have cards in Japan, South Korea, Australia. You can get a card in China. You're talking about big money.
No, yeah, but then you also have, different fighters and things like that. When you see these Brazilian cards, you see some of the fighters that you normally don't see over here in the U.S. There's going to be possible different matchups.
I'm completely on board with you. I completely agree. And we'll see how it goes. For right now, the Fertittas are completely in control. Dana White, completely in control. So the UFC is operating business as usual, but it's expanding very quickly. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody wants to cash out, because this is kind of the way things go when you take a $2 million business and all of a sudden elevate it to possibly a $4 billion valuation. We've got a lot more to talk about on the show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will dive into UFC 198. Sean, I've been like shaking with excitement all day long to talk about this with somebody. So I'm really psyched to do this. We'll talk about the undercard. We'll talk about the main card, which is still loaded despite the fact that Anderson Silva is there. We disagree on the main event of UFC 198, which will create just some great entertainment, because I just can't see your side of things, but we'll get to it. Remember, you can find us online, thefullmountmma.com, read articles, news, rumors, all of that good stuff, fight breakdowns of this week's massive card down in Curitiba. You can subscribe to the podcast. If you like what you're listening to so far, go hit us up on iTunes. Subscribe, rate us, review us. If you think we're terrible, tell us that. If you think we're great, tell us that too. Sean, we can always use a little bump in our day. Friday tomorrow, so
of course we can.
We feel better. And if you have something you want to get on the show, you want something for us to talk about, you want to get at us and say, no, you're wrong on this, or you're completely right on this, tweet at us. Tweet at The Full Mount for the website. Tweet at BCoyle11 for me. Tweet at SS Sports Talk for Sean. So, Sean, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive deep into UFC 198 here on the TFM Live podcast.
For all your latest news and rumors of the UFC, go to thefullmountmma.com. Now back to the TFM Live podcast. Here's Brian Coyle and Sean Stanley. All right, back with you here. TFM Live podcast. Sean Stanley, Brian Coyle with you. Also, you can get in touch with us right now. We got a live broadcast going on right now, so you can call 305-570-0SFL or 305-570-0735. Bring back in Brian Coyle with me here.
Yeah, what's up, Sean? I think Russell Westbrook just put a dagger in the hearts of San Antonio Spurs fans everywhere. So, let's talk about let's talk about somebody who could put a dagger in the hearts of Brazilian fans everywhere.
Oh boy.
Man, this card, UFC 198, and if you have any opinions on this, at home, tweet at us at the Full Mount, at BCoil11, at us at Sports Talk, because this is a very, very, very interesting, fun matchup, stylistic card. It's got everything, man. It's got everything. Before Anderson Silva pulled out, we wrote an article, the latest 3 and out, as we do, where we take the TFM staff, me, and yours opinion, throw it into a blender, see what we get. Who's got the most to gain at UFC 198? You had Silva, or you had Uriah Hall as one of the guys.
I had two technically, yeah.
Yes. So who was your other fighter that had the most to gain?
Well,
here?
I thought, Jacare Souza has a lot to gain after he looked so bad in the fight with Yoel Romero. He's going to get a second shot here at a chance to possibly get in line for, a title shot. And then also he can beat a name like Vitor Belfort. So it's almost, to me, it's 2 wins for him if he can pick up 1 win.
Is it me, or did you only watch the first round of that fight between Yoel Romero and Jacare Souza? Because Romero was the one huffing and puffing.
Listen, he might have been huffing and puffing, but hey, you know what? Who got the W in the end? That's all that matters, right?
The guy who got popped for PEDs after the fight.
Hey,
but I digress.
However you want to talk about it, it's okay. Souza fell back down, and now he has a chance to redeem himself and show.
You're absolutely
and
right.
show if that is the case, then he can show it in the octagon and prove that he is the next contender for a title shot.
No, you're absolutely right. Jacare Souza, of course, I'm a little partial to the Gator because I love the way he fights. But, man, this is a middleweight title eliminator, essentially, because you've got Luke Rockhold and Chris Weidman. If Rockhold wins, obviously Weidman's going to drop down a bunch of pegs. If not, maybe they go to trilogy. But if Souza looks impressive against Vitor Belfort, which I think he's got the opportunity to do so if he plays it right, he's a guy that can definitely jump into the limelight at the middleweight division, possibly end up as a champion by the end of the year, which is something he said today that he's going to do. There's a lot of people that can gain stuff on this card. For me, it's the winner of the heavyweight fight, and we'll get into detail in a little bit. But Fabricio Werdum is on the way to becoming possibly the best heavyweight of all time. And that's a big deal. No heavyweights defended the UFC heavyweight title more than 3 times, which is absolutely insane. But Werdum is a guy who's got these all-around skills where he can basically do anything. And that's what makes him so dangerous. He's not the biggest dude out there, but his Brazilian jiu-jitsu obviously is outstanding. His work in the clinch is amazing. His submissions are great. He can stand and trade if he wants to. He's a master of the mental game. He can do so much. And on the flip side, you've got Stipe Miocic, who, if he goes out and wins in Brazil, 45,000 people chanting "You will die" chants at him, and goes out and beats Werdum either by decision or knockout, this is an image that will last forever. Not only in MMA, but in sports. You go into the Lion's Den and you come out a champion. Those guys have the most to gain from this fight, because that would be absolutely historic, and the whole place might go nuts. Like, that main event has got so much tied to it, and I just can't wait for it to happen. And, of course, there are other people that definitely can earn a lot. Cris Cyborg's first fight, Corey Beaston 25-8, who we'll talk about more just right coming up in a second. A lot of people can take this major stage and do something with it. Now, let's jump into the undercard. Sean, what is your favorite undercard fight here? We'll go through each fight, including the Fox Sports 1, some of the Fox Sports 1 prelims, but what's your undercard fight to watch at 198 this Saturday?
I mean, I'm really I'm interested to see how Anderson does against Rua. Beaston 25-8. I'm interested to see how he does. Stepping up in the competition.
That one to me
I
is
just
really
think,
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think, ultimately, I mean, easy to say, but I think also you have your, the Cyborg fight's going to be intriguing. I don't think it's going to be much of a contest, but, her first fight in UFC, at the time, I mean, if you even go farther down the prelims, you got, Mark Court's fighting again. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but to me, the Rua Anderson fight, just because, look, Corey Anderson's looked good. And Rua's dropped 2 of his last 3. So right now, Anderson's trying to move up. Rua's 8. So this might be a chance to turn more heads than just be a nickname, Beastin 25-8, and actually start making steps toward the top of the light heavyweight division for Anderson.
And it's amazing because you'll see this tomorrow. I'm going to be putting up a TFM breakdown, our new fight breakdown series for we'll be going forward. So it's a nice little easy chunk for you guys if you want to read on thefullmountainmma.com. Just I see this fight. What is it about? This fight is a star-making fight. That plain and simple. This is what it is. They're giving Corey Anderson an opportunity to beat a legend. Because Shogun, I mean, pride never die. Like the light heavyweight. His light heavyweight UFC run that was put to a halt by John Jones because he put a halt to everybody's run. This is the kind of deal where, I mean, as much as we love Shogun, he's 2-4 in his last 6 fights.
He's turned into the Dan Henderson.
I don't know, like that might be putting it kindly because watching Shogun, it's just the speed's not there. What made him so great?
Well, what I mean is like he's that name that's still like you want to see him in the octagon, and again he has that chance of winning, but you think ultimately he's really probably not gonna, like every time Henderson steps in the cage, you're looking for the H bomb. If he lands it, he can win the fight. If not, then he's probably not winning the fight. That's kind of like where I think Rua's at now, and they're just kind of making, names by putting them over on these guys, Henderson, Rua. I just think that, as you said, it's a name-making match for him.
Yes, and what Corey Anderson has to do here is be better than he has been because 3 straight decision wins. I know he's 9-1. Yeah. But he's not looked great.
Well, he's had glimpses. I mean, there's times where it's like, okay, he's going to put him away, and then he's just like, I don't know if I won't say because it doesn't look like he like huffs and puffs, but it's like he just punches himself out or whatever. He just like all of a sudden it's like he hits a wall and like, okay, and then the guy escapes the round, and then it just goes to a decision. It just seems like he doesn't have I don't want to say killer attitude because, I mean, he's in there beating up people for a living and getting beat up. So
I mean, he's beasting 25-8, dude.
Yeah, I mean, but he's got 3 straight decisions, so he's not doing everything bad. But I think you got to start putting people away if you want to make a name. Because decisions you'll move up in the rankings, but you start putting people away quick, you're gonna move up a lot quicker. Especially if you put away, Shogun Rua quick in his hometown or his home, country. I mean,
I think that this is very similar to the OSP Shogun fight, but that was a time when Shogun actually probably still had stuff to gain. With Anderson, he's got such great wrestling ability. He's got the size. He's got a 79-inch reach. He's got everything that you would want, but that mean streak hasn't come out yet. And
you ain't got the beastin' yet.
The decision wins over Blachowicz, Fabio Maldonado, and Tom Lawler in a fight that was, I mean, I thought Lawler won that fight. So it's like he's got to go out here and be like, listen, he needs to either go out and be dominant in a decision victory, which he can do because, again, Shogun is older. He's past his prime in the twilight of his career. If Anderson smothers him and grounds him and then goes ground and pound on him, he can get a stoppage here and make it a big deal. If Shogun's only way to win this fight is to nail him. He's got to drop him and then go to a ground and pound or something like that. Because he can't go with a younger, more athletic, probably better cardio in Corey Anderson. He can't go the full 3 rounds. If this fight goes to decision, I don't see a way that Shogun wins it.
No, I think what he's got to hope is that Anderson comes out, trying to put him away, and he lands that shot. I mean, that's what he's got to hope he gets overzealous, comes out trying to, because exactly what we're saying. His team's probably telling him the same thing, like, hey, you got to make an impressive showing here, and you might be able to catch him.
That's the opportunity to do so. Who you picking in this fight?
I got to go with Beastin 25-8.
I'm totally with you. I think Corey Anderson wins by decision. I don't think it's a dominant decision, but I don't think it's as bad as his recent performances was. I think this will be a good showing for Corey Anderson, and I think it's not the end for Shogun, but it's close. It's getting really close.
You're saying the writing's getting on the wall?
Yes, but I mean, his career has been so impressive. It's just like I want to see Shogun go out on a high note. I don't want to see him kind of devolve into Bigfoot Silva, which that's unfortunately what has happened in Bigfoot's career after getting knocked out by Stefan Struve on that fight card that you didn't care about, which was actually turned out to be pretty amazing. But we'll talk about that.
Because it was so quick.
Yeah, it was way.
I digress. Okay, let's go.
Okay, more fights on this card. Damian Maia, Matt Brown, the Fox Sports 1 main event, and I'm so excited for this fight because Damian Maia has not nearly gotten the respect he deserves because he's been destroying people, but just not destroying them, just been completely mastering them, outclassing them. He turned Gunnar Nelson, who again looked great against Albert Tumanov on Mother's Day.
Yep.
He turns Nelson into the clawed cat, and Maia just completely dominated him for 3 rounds, and he tapped out Neil Magny. He's basically on the verge in this crazy welterweight division of possibly throwing himself in the title contention against Matt Brown, who I love this fight because we know exactly what's going to happen. Because Damian Maia is going to want to go to the mat and just completely school Matt Brown, and Matt Brown's going to want to just swing wildly and try to connect here, and that makes for great television, and it's going to be very fun. What are your thoughts on this fight?
I think the immortal becomes mortal real quick.
I'm with you on that one. I think Maia is the guy here where this is his setup. This is his time to shine. This is front of the home crowd, and he feels disrespected that he's not on the pay-per-view, which I get. They want to put him on the Fox Sports main event because, oh my God, we see this, and then people want to buy the pay-per-view.
Well, not only that too, but you get that crowd hyped up.
Yes.
If Maia has this great, you're going into the pay-per-view now with a crowd buzzing.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
and then and then it goes from there. But because honestly, I thought this fight would have been moved up to replace the other one. But I think what they did was like, hey, wait a minute, we need a good main event on FS1 to have the buzz going into the pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm. So you're going with Maia here?
Yes.
Me too. I like the way Matt Brown fights, and I know he's so entertaining to watch, but I think Maia is this is his final run, if you will, because he's been at the peak of his performances once he's dropped down the welterweight, and I want to see him go. I think he dispatches Matt Brown by submission here, and I want to see him go against an elite welterweight, and I want to see how that kind of shakes out. Maybe the loser of Wonder Boy Rory McDonald.
Yeah, he definitely has to fight a top 5 opponent after this. If he does what we think he will do, he definitely has to get a better competition. A top 5 contender.
Yeah. There are a couple other fights on the prelims before we get to the top 3. Warley Alvarez. Did it again.
Yeah,
you're
doing good at that one.
Undefeated, 11-0, has looked good in his UFC appearances. Brian Barberena, who is 11-3, was last seen punching the lights out of Sage Northcutt and then choking him out in an odd fashion. This got moved up to the main card from the prelims. What are your thoughts on this fight?
It's going to be interesting here. You got I almost called him Alvarez as well just now.
Yeah, it's my fault.
Yeah, I mean, look, he looked good against Northcutt and everything, but I got to go with Alvarez in this one.
Yeah, I mean, he's had some very convincing wins.
Yeah.
Nordine Taleb at UFC 190 was a very nice submission. He beat Colby Covington by round 1 submission. And Barberena is he's a scrapper.
Yeah.
Which made the Northcutt fight very interesting, but it was a step up in talent, and also Northcutt was fighting at 170 instead of 155, which is where he's supposed to fight. So I think this is Alves in that one. John Lineker, Rob Font is another interesting. It's Lineker's return after getting dengue fever, I believe, before he was supposed to fight Cody No Love Garbrandt, I think. But I think Lineker and Font, that's one of those fun kick off the prelims fights. I think Lineker takes that one.
I got a question for you here because I'm looking at the UFC site here.
Yes.
Now, Lineker, where is he from?
He's from Brazil.
Is he really?
Yes.
It just doesn't look like it to me. I'm like, did they mess up here? And the guy
no.
He does not. I mean, again, not saying I know everybody's Brazilian, but I mean, just looking at there in Lineker, I would think that there's not a Brazilian name. But okay, I stand corrected.
And this is Lineker going up to 135. This is a bantamweight, not at 125, where he's missed weight before. So I think he'll feel a little bit better. And I think that's, regardless of who wins that fight, it's just going to be a complete slugfest. And it's going to be one of those FS1 fights where you just kind of have it on the background if you're not paying attention. And these guys start slugging out for like a minute straight. And you're like, how are these two standing right now?
It'll catch your attention if they start slugging it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So before we get to the main card, let's talk about the third fight listed on the main card.
Wait, real quick, can I just want to hear you pronounce this guy's name, Francisco Trinaldo. What is he called?
Okay, hold on. What?
Massaranduba?
Yeah. You nailed it on the first try. Trinaldo and Yancy Menderos. Trinaldo, by the way, has been kind of on a roll, so he's a guy to watch, even though he's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
He's kind of slowly putting it together.
But isn't it like most of these Brazilian fighters, it seems like they get better with age, no?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I guess it's like experience, something in the water. I know it's not something in the water.
Well, but I think also a lot of them is technique. If you look at a lot of them, I mean, because the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, of course, but I think it has to go with technique. As soon as they master down the technique, they seem to get better. They don't need to be swinging slugfest and everything else like that.
Yeah, that's a pretty astute observation, Sean.
Hey,
I like it.
I try.
All right. So someone who might be doing some observing or maybe not after she's done fighting Cyborg. Leslie Smith and Cris Cyborg is the third fight on the main card. It's Cyborg's introduction into the UFC, a catchweight bout of 140 pounds. The greatest striker in women's MMA history finally steps into the octagon against a apparently very game Leslie Smith. At least that's what she said over these this fight.
What else is she supposed to say?
Yes, I know that. But, man, this is going to be something else just to see Cyborg's entry into the UFC. And the crowd will be going nuts. She is so good. And every facet of her striking ability is on point, from her jabs, her punches, her clinch work. It's absolutely outstanding. I know I've said on the podcast that I would never say nobody has a chance against somebody else. There is no way that Leslie Smith beats Cris Cyborg on Saturday night.
Not so fast, my friend.
In what universe?
There's no way that I believe she'll win it, but there's always that 0.1% chance that a banana peel slides into the ring, or maybe a parachutist comes in and falls over the octagon or something.
I was going to say, were you watching Chasing Tyson last night?
Something could happen. So I will not say no chance, but I think I have a better chance of winning the UFC heavyweight title sooner than Leslie Smith has of beating Cris Cyborg.
Oh, man, this is going to be brutal. This is going to be I have a first round knockout. I think it's going to take a little while just for the fact that Cyborg's going to love the energy coming off of the crowd to just kind of soak that all in, and then she'll drop Leslie Smith, who you got to give her a lot of credit because better fighters than her passed up the Cyborg fight, and we know Holly Holm to be one of them.
Well, because what do you have to gain, honestly, though, in this fight?
You're absolutely right.
The only thing that you got maybe a possibility of gaining is that you beat Cyborg, which gets you what right now? Nothing. It's a catch weight.
Title shot.
Well, it's a catch weight, though.
Even though it's not at that title,
I mean, you're kind of in the middle there. Yeah, great. You went up and you beat probably one of the toughest women in mixed martial arts, but is it? I mean, like for somebody like Leslie Smith, there's a lot to gain, really. I mean, there's nothing to lose for her. But for your Holly Holmes, your contenders, there's a lot to lose there. So I don't know if I would have took the fight either, honestly.
It's fair. It's a fair criticism. Somebody's got to be Cyborg's first opponent, and Leslie Smith volunteered for it. And I hope she's getting compensated handsomely for this, because man, it's going to be. And supposedly this is Cyborg's. I mean, we hear this all the time. This is like the best weight cut of somebody's career. Like what else are they going to say? But she looks happy. She looks excited. These embedded videos and in the media days, she looks good. She looks confident. She was still drinking water, apparently.
Well, on Mother's Day, she was already at 152. So she was 12 pounds off on Mother's Day. And that was also, a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
That was on Sunday. And that's how I learned that Mother's Day isn't just a U.S. thing. Remember how we were having this conversation last podcast about whether they have the Mother's Day card in Rotterdam? That the more you know. There you go. But Cyborg's winning this fight in the first round, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's the hesitation? Did she want to mess?
No, because
mess
I
with
just
her prey
that's part of my thing. You know, I mean, like when you watched her last fight, it seemed like she toyed around with her opponent, and then went in for the kill when she needed to. You know, she's like that snake where, like, she lets the mouse run around the cage for a little while, get in a couple shots, and she just sits there like, oh, okay. And then, okay, time to end this.
Yeah. So it will be a great night for Cris Cyborg. And, I mean, it could turn out to be a great night for Leslie Smith. She's getting paid. I mean, who knows? The gloves are small. Like you said, there is a 1.5 or 0.01% chance that she does do something. It would take a colossal mistake by Cyborg to create an opening such as that. But it will be a fun environment. And now this is kind of the way I talked about Silva at the start of the podcast. This is the kind of way where you see that whole crowd just kind of go into a hush and then lose it when Cyborg makes her UFC debut in front of her hometown fans, which is pretty awesome. And just from an environment standpoint, from an image standpoint, that's going to be very, very fun to watch. Sean, let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll jump into the co-main and main events of UFC 198. Before we do that, I just want to mention again, we are on iTunes. If you're listening to us live right now, subscribe to the podcast just in case you miss it, because we've been trying to set up a normal time when we record these. But until then, you can always subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Just search TFM Live in iTunes. We'll pop right back up. Review us, rate us, do all of that good stuff. Let us know how we're doing, what you want in the show, what you want more of, what you want less of, anything of that nature. Of course, you can find us on YouTube. Just search The Full Mount MMA on YouTube for little bite-sized pieces of the podcast that you can listen to and watch as your day. If you can't listen to the podcast all in one sitting, you can go online, thefullmountmma.com, of course, where we have all our articles. We're having complete coverage of UFC 198, head to toe, fight breakdowns, all that good stuff. So, Sean, let's take a break. When we come back, we will jump into the co-main and main event of UFC 198. So stay tuned for that on TFM Live, the official podcast of thefullmountmma.com.
For all your latest news and rumors of the UFC, go to thefullmountmma.com. Now back to the TFM Live podcast. Here's Brian Coyle and Sean Stanley. All right, Sean Stanley, Brian Coyle back with you. We've got this, the last segment. We wrap it up here on the TFM Live podcast. Don't forget to check us out at thefullmountmma.com or follow us on Twitter at thefullmount, at bcoil11 or at SS Sports Talk. Get in on the show, 305-5700-SFL. And what we have left, Brian, is the semi-main and the main event of UFC 198.
Oh, and how wonderful a time it will be when we are watching these fights down in Curitiba. Man, I was on the train this morning into New York City, as I always am, Monday through Friday, for my other real job. And I'm sitting here, and I'm writing the breakdowns, the TFM breakdowns that you can see live on our website right now. And it kind of hit me. Belfort Sousa is the only fight on the card that means a lot that isn't Brazil versus everybody. It's two Brazilians, legends in the game, going at it, and this is the de facto middleweight title eliminator. It's crunch time. Both veterans are getting into the latter stages of their careers, both still going at a high level. Belfort, of course, had a title shot, got dusted by Chris Weidman. He's knocked out a very, very past prime time Dan Henderson twice in his last 3 fights. Sousa, of course, coming off that split decision loss to Yoel Romero, where he got Romero would later get popped for PEDs. And to me, Jacare won that fight. A lot of people also shared that opinion. It's now or never. Striker versus BJJ champion. This is going to be awesome. Give me your initial thoughts on this fight, Sean.
Well, I mean, we kind of discussed a little bit here. You got Sosa's got some, got to get this win. I mean, honestly, he's got to take this and advance to do what he said. He feels he got cheated. I think a lot of people feel he got cheated. So the only way to do it is to go step inside the octagon and do it with Vitor Belfort.
Yeah.
And make everybody see, what the travesty was, I guess, if you want to call that. But look, we all see it in UFC is you got to end these fights. A lot of these guys let these things go to the judges, and then they disappointed. I mean, why let it go to the judges? Let's finish it. Let's end it, and let's get your title shot.
Yeah, and it's like, as much as it's such a cliche to say it's a classic striker versus grappler matchup, it kind of is, because Belfort is known. He was called the Phenom for a reason.
Yeah.
The strikes, the
when you look at what
72%
of his wins are KO or TKO. So
it's what he does. He's got to stay off the ground in this fight. He has to. Like, this is bar none. Vitor wins this fight by knocking him out.
Yeah.
And
Sosa wins by choking him out.
I think Sosa can do both.
Yeah. Well,
that's the difference here.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely has more, but I mean, he has more submission victories. But yeah, I mean, do you think he could set it up with the punches? Because I think Belfort's going to want to keep it on its feet, but he's going to. I think for Sosa, he's going to want to get it down.
Yeah, he's got to survive that initial. I'm going to come at you charging like a wild man flurry, if you will. He's got to be able to just kind of navigate that first round, because Belfort is going to come out. Vitor's never been known for his cardio. Let's just put it that way, especially at the latter stages of his career, especially with the TRT stuff and all that. Belfort's going to come out swinging. And if Sosa can kind of navigate those choppy waters in the beginning and kind of get into his zone, be patient, go for it, throw in a couple strikes, get him down to the ground, and twist him up, then it's over. But I think there's a high probability of a flash KO from Belfort knocking out Sousa if Jacare if he takes a lot of punishment early on, because there was points in his fight against Yoel Romero where you could have called that fight out because Sousa might have been out on his feet. But to me, I think he's able to kind of get past it, because Chris Weidman actually took a flurry from Vitor Belfort before Vitor kind of messed up, and then Weidman went straight for him and choked him out.
Yeah.
So I think that's the kind of game plan that you want to see from Jacare, and I think he executes it. I think Jacare Sousa wins this fight. third round, ground and pound, and I think he's your next middleweight title challenger.
I'm thinking second round.
Second round?
Yeah, second round stoppage.
Okay. So we are on the same page for the co-main event.
Yeah.
And I'm just so excited for the Gator walk into the cage. It's one of the coolest images that you'll see in mixed martial arts and fights and any of that nature. It's just the crowds is kind of like, to me, that's what makes this event so special. It's going to be in a soccer stadium with 45,000 people. It's going to be electric. It's going to be really, really fun to watch. And it's going to be a heightened atmosphere for the main event of the evening between Fabricio Werdum and Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight championship in the UFC. Sean, you've got Stipe Miocic in this fight. Explain to me why that is before I get into more detail here.
Hey, Rocky IV.
Rocky IV.
Rocky IV. He goes to Russia. What happens? He wins him over, right?
Yes.
He's going to go into Brazil. He's going to win over this crowd. And then he's going to walk out the UFC heavyweight title with a flurry of punches in the third round.
See, the last time we heard the words Rocky IV uttered revolving around a UFC fight was Ronda Rousey against Bethe Correia, UFC 190. Problem is, Bethe Correia, as much as she is from Brazil, is Brazilian, she doesn't really have the charisma, I'd say, as somebody like, I don't know, Fabricio Werdum, who seems beloved in that country. He does the Werdum face. Everyone, they have the printouts of his face that they're giving out to people going to the fight. This is the ultimate going into the lion's den that Miocic will have to handle, because Fabricio Werdum is the people's champion, and I just think that environment is another obstacle in the way of Miocic, and I think there's too much for him to overcome here.
Yeah, but see, I think that's going to play with Werdum. I think he's going to come in over zealous, and he's going to slip up and catch the punch. Third round, Brazil.
Wow. What is Miocic's game plan? If you want to go, let's go down this rabbit hole for a bit, because I have a way in the breakdown that I wrote how Stipe Miocic can win this fight. It's not like a done and dusted, this is going to happen sort of thing. I think this is going to be the toughest test of Werdum's career. How does Miocic go ahead and win this fight?
Well, I mean, he's got to punch, man. That's what you got to do. You got to punch. You better be in that gym. Well, actually, not be in the gym now. You should have been in the gym for your whole training camp, working on making sure this fight stays up and make sure you're landing those punches. You got to get stoppage in this fight. I mean, that's what I think what's going to happen. I really think Werdum, this crowd's going to start to chant going, and he's going to get into that, Anderson Silva-like thing where he's just like playing with his opponent, and he's going to get caught, and it's going to get dropped, and you're going to hear new UFC heavyweight champion.
It's about time that Cleveland will get a title, man.
Well, somebody's got to do it, right? I mean, it ain't gonna be a team, Cleveland.
Somebody's gonna do it eventually. I mean, I think the Cavs can win the NBA title, but I mean,
yeah, when
so that can happen. I know it's a little sour for a Miami resident like yourself with LeBron, but I digress here.
No, see, I'm not one of those fans like that. As I look, we paid him to do a job. He did the job. Miocic is getting paid to do a job. He's gonna do the job in Brazil.
He's not gonna job in Brazil.
He's not jobbing, but he's gonna get the job done.
This is the way Miocic wins this fight. You take the crowd out of it early. Body shots. You gotta wear Werdum down here, because Werdum is so good. So as an all-around perspective, you mentioned Rocky IV. I think this is a Rocky I situation, my friend. I think he's got to layer the body shots heavy.
Yeah, but
repeatedly. Miocic owns the record for the most strikes.
Yeah, but in Rocky I, he doesn't win the belt.
That's what
It's a draw.
I'm just saying here. This is the way you do it. You got to pepper him with body shots. You have to wear down a supreme athlete in Werdum who doesn't get tired, who gassed out Cain Velasquez while fighting at altitude. Werdum can do so many different things, so you have to take away his ability to do that. You have to be able to layer body shots. You have to get him wounded. You have to take him down to an ability where you can get that knockout.
But I don't think you can get inside like that on Werdum, though, to hit body shots like that, to pepper him with body shots. You're going to get caught.
That's the thing he has to avoid here. That's why I have Werdum winning here in 4th round submission, because I think even then we've seen it with Werdum before, where like he'll go down and somebody will chase. And then, man, he'll just wrap him up and then lock in a guillotine, and it's over. So even if he does get him enough, and even if he does hit him to the ground a couple times, Miocic's got to be so careful to not just get caught with Werdum playing possum and then strike. And this is why there's so many different avenues here for Werdum to win, and I just see one from Miocic's side, and that combined with the crowd, it's going to get to somebody. I don't know if it's going to get to Werdum like you're saying. I don't know if it's going to get to Miocic like I think is going to happen. But this environment is going to have a major impact on somebody in this fight. I think it's going to be a great fight. I'm really excited for it. The winner likely will face off against Alistair Overeem, who looked so good.
Oh, the big toe kick.
So good with that flying crane kick against Arlovsky. And I don't want to brag or anything, but I think I did say that Overeem would win in the 2nd round via knockout.
Yeah, I think I said I didn't care. I just wanted to be quick, and it was quick, so it's good.
Yes, so you were happy about it. But so this is the kind of if Werdum wins, we get a trilogy against Overeem.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I know you.
I'm
love,
sorry. It's just, to me, the heavyweight division has just, I don't know, man. Look, in a way, I kind of hope Werdum wins because it'll put some more stability into this heavyweight division.
I mean, I've mentioned before, it's never been the title has never been defended 3 straight times.
It's just crazy, man. And then if you get Miocic and Overeem, I don't know how that's going to end. You know what I'm saying? It's just so weird right now, the heavyweight division.
It's so interesting to me, this fight, especially because of what Werdum can do. Like, he's got a real shot at becoming the best heavyweight of all time.
Yeah, but wasn't this being said about Cain Velasquez and Dos Santos? I mean, it seems like every time somebody in the heavyweight division gets the belt, there's that possibility, and then they get beat, and then it's like, oh, this guy's the next heavyweight that can do it, and then he gets beat, and then it's like they just keep rolling the title over that moniker over to whoever has the belt.
I think that the difference is with Werdum is the fact that, I mean, Velasquez never put together enough consecutive staying healthy, number one, and just staying on track and winning. If Werdum is undefeated since he came back to the UFC in 2012. He's beaten Fedor, which not many people can say. As much as Fedor has become the butt of many jokes now, he made him tap out. So that's a big freaking deal. Werdum has beaten pretty much everybody in this heavyweight division. And when I look at a guy like this, and he's not the biggest guy in the world, and he's not pushing 265. He's listed on the UFC website as 231. And he's knocked out Mark Hunt. He's beaten Travis Brown. He's beaten Minotauro Nogueira. He split with Overeem. He lost to JDS, but he's beaten Bigfoot Silva in his prime. He's beaten Gabriel Gonzaga when he was big. Like, he's beaten so many people. And his 6-0 run in the UFC right now, he's looked absolutely great. And he's at the peak of his performance right now. For a 38-year-old, it's an absolute masterclass in longevity, especially to see Werdum doing what he is now. And I think he can go out there and put down a performance that could close the door on this argument. If he goes out and takes care of Miocic, this is his first shot. And I think we'll see Miocic here again, whether as champion or not. Especially after that vicious knockout of Arlovsky. I just feel like it's just too big of a stage right now for Miocic to pull it off. And I think Werdum has got so much with him. Like he can submit people. He's great in the clinch. He can throw if he wants. He can take people down. He loves the ground. He'll lay on the ground and try to bait somebody in. Yep. And we talk about all these skills, but when it comes to the fight game, it's so mental. And Werdum has captured that ability, that fight intelligence to do all these things and combine it into this perfect storm of a skill set. And I think Werdum comes out on top. I really think that's it.
I will agree to disagree with you on that.
That's fine. We should really start keeping track of our main event choices, or just fight picks in general. Maybe we should start doing that. I'll write this one down, and we'll see as we progress.
Yeah, and then we see how we look. Only the main events and co-main events we'll pick. And that way we can do that way we got 2 fights every one, and then we'll see how we do at the end of a period of time.
Yeah, I like it. We can go see how we look up to 200, and we can do every fight in the 200 card because it's so loaded. So this will be fun. I like this. I like this. This is the new era for the TFM Live podcast. I like it. You got anything else that you wanted to get by? Because it's we've talked about a lot. This is a little bit of a longer episode because 198 is so loaded, man. This is gonna be great.
The next few
Saturday night
are gonna be great.
What?
I know. I was saying the next few pay-per-views are going to be pretty good. You know, you got the 198, 199, and your blockbuster 200.
Hey man, I'm bringing my lunch at work all the time because I want to save up that money. Got to pay for these pay-per-views, man.
See, you ain't like us down here. We got the quarter deck, baby. Go see UFC fights for free.
Hey, we ain't got no expense reports up in here.
No expense report. You get to go to the quarter deck restaurants down here. Greatest thing. The owner loves UFC, and he free. No cover charge, no nothing.
That's what
all
it's
you got to
about.
do is you get a little soda or something, you can sit there all day.
I was going to say, anyone, if you don't want to buy the pay-per-view, go out to your local establishment. If you're by where Sean is in the South Florida area, that's a great recommendation. It's going to be a fun card. I just can't wait for the atmosphere. I'm one of those people when you see the entertainment value, when you see the show, and you get a good appreciation for everything that goes into it. All the hardworking people at the UFC putting this massive event together, and I think it's going to be an absolute overnight success. I think it's going to be awesome to watch. Thank you guys for listening for the latest edition of the TFM Live podcast. You can find us online, of course, as we've been saying throughout the show. TheFullMountMMA.com for the latest news, rumors, breakdowns of fights, reactions, all that great stuff. You can follow us on Twitter. We'll be live tweeting, of course, during UFC 198. Tweet at me, at BCoyle11. Tweet at Sean, at SS Sports Talk. And when Werdum taps out Miocic, I will be tweeting at you, Sean, for sure. At The Full Mount on Twitter for the site. If there's anything you want to see out of the site, you want us to do certain things, you want us to preview certain fights, other promotions. Bellator has a card, King Mo and Phil Davis on Friday or Saturday night, specifically starting at 8 o'clock, not an interfere with the UFC's pay-per-view. Very smart. Anything that you guys, any ideas that you want to see us do, we want to listen. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from the people who read and listen to us because we want to curate our content towards you guys. We want to make you guys happy. That's the whole point of this undertaking. So let us know in the comments on YouTube, the Full Mount MMA YouTube channel, on iTunes. Subscribe to us, TFM Live. Just type it in the search bar, it pops right up. Sean, thank you as always for putting this all together, recording everything. You do a masterful job, my friend. Almost as good as Damian Maia's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Almost.
I can wish one day I'll be like that.
Yes. So thank you guys for listening. For Sean, I'm Brian. We're out. Have a good weekend, everybody.
The TFM Live Life podcast is brought to you by The Full Mount, MMA.com. Check us out on Twitter at The Full Mount.